Well, hello there, Edges. My name's Robert, and for those of you who don't know me, when Ed refers euphemistically to the lab, more often than not he's referring to me. For my sins, I had a lot to do with the creation of the maximum edge process, and while we were away at the boot camp, Dan and we worked up a fantastic traffic confirmation tool using Google Trends, which I'm particularly excited about because I think finally we got a way of actually coming to a view of the truth, especially in relation to the traffic potential that Google might offer in relation to a particular keyword. The problem is that very often for certain keywords in Word Tracker, which is if you've been following the maximum edge strategy, we use often free Word Tracker or Word Tracker to establish the the traffic potential in relation to a particular keyword. But very often the Word Tracker results are wrong. They're just the traffic potential that is suggested by Word Tracker when you actually go out there and create a Squidoo lens and get a good ranking for that keyword phrase, you don't get anywhere near the level of traffic than you were anticipating based on the initial keyword research using Word Tracker. And this has been a challenge for quite some time now, and I myself have created several lenses where I was expecting a whole flood of traffic if I ranked well for a certain keyword, but I got very little. So I had an inkling that there was a problem with the Word Tracker numbers, and whilst I was in Whistler with Dan, we indeed confirmed that by comparing the Word Tracker databases and the keyword discovery databases. Unfortunately, keyword discovery though is very expensive, and we needed a more approachable way of confirming those numbers. And I had a flash of insight and thought of Google Trends, which we have used for some time now to establish cyclical traffic trends. But because Dan and I rank very well for certain keywords, we were able to correlate the Google Trends graphs with known traffic that we're receiving from Google for lenses that we happen to be ranked well for. So at this stage, I'm going to offer you a baseline using a particular keyword phrase, and that keyword phrase is male yeast infection. And if we type that into Google, we can see that there's a slightly declining traffic trend for that key phrase over the last 18 months to 2 years. But at the current time, if you have a website that's ranked in the top 1 or 2 for that key phrase, you would expect to get about 5 to 550 page views a day or searches a day coming through to your website from Google. And we know that because Dan happens to hold the number 2 position for that key phrase. So in effect, this position here represents about 5 to 550 searches a day. Now if we scroll down and look at the traffic in relation to regions or cities or languages, you can see the spread of that traffic is mostly in the 4 main first world countries: Australia, United Kingdom, United States, and Canada, and various minor amounts of traffic from other regions and so forth. Now we'll be exploring these bars later, because there is a particular time when you'll use these bars where for a keyword that you're searching, there's not enough traffic for that keyword to register in this main graph above. Now, the real value of this tool is that we can, now that we've got a baseline, we've got a known keyword phrase which has a known traffic volume, we can cross-correlate traffic a key phrase and compare them directly using Google Trends. Now, an example that I'm going to show you is this key phrase here: updos prom hairstyles. According to Word Tracker, there's a lot of traffic associated with this key phrase, and we can immediately come across here to Google Trends. We can enter in our baseline key phrase, male yeast infection, then a comma, and then our comparative keyword phrase. And if we click search trends, immediately Google shows us the traffic associated with the broad match phrase updos prom hairstyles against the traffic associated with male yeast infection. Now we know that this line here represents about 500 page views a day if you have a website ranking in position 1 or 2. So in effect, how I have been using this is that I can say, okay, if I had a website optimized broad ranking in position 1 or 2 for the phrase updos prom hairstyles, then at certain times of the year, obviously related to the prom seasons in the US, then there would be a lot of traffic, and in this case, just on comparative terms, I'd expect about 1,500 page views here and about 500-600 page views here. But obviously there are periods of time in the year when there is no traffic at all, and that's because obviously the traffic associated with this key phrase is highly seasonal, and it's related to the prom seasons. Now, this is assuming that we hold a good ranking for the broad match of updos prom hairstyles. Let's have a look and see what happens if we interrogate the traffic for the phrase match updos prom hairstyles. Now the picture is completely different. In effect, there is no traffic for the phrase match updos prom hairstyles. And what's probably happening here is that on a broad match basis, the bulk of the traffic that we saw before is really associated with the key phrase prom hairstyles, which one would expect. The actual phrase match specific phrase updos prom hairstyles, Google is telling us that there's just virtually no traffic for that phrase. Although Word Tracker, if we go and interrogate what Word Tracker thinks there is traffic for that phrase, sorry, I just had to pause the video while I completed the capture there. But you can see that the free Word Tracker tool is telling us that for the phrase updos prom hairstyles, there's 2,421 searches a day. But Google has quite simply confirmed that traffic just does not exist in relation to the phrase match of updos prom hairstyles. There is a fair bit of traffic for the broad match phrase, but only at certain times of the year. So this tool is very powerful in the sense that not only will it allow you to confirm the traffic that exists for the broad match phrase, if you happen to rank for the broad match for any key phrase, but it also will tell you how much traffic you would expect to receive if you rank for the phrase match. And when you first start a Squidoo lens or a hub page, you're probably going to be ranked well for the phrase match of that phrase, and your main interest in those first week or 10 days is the traffic that's associated with the phrase match. Now eventually over time, as Google sees you as more of an authority for the phrase, you'll also be ranked for the broad match. But initially, the traffic that you'll receive from Google will only really come from the phrase match rankings. Now, I'm going to type in another phrase here. To show you a key phrase where the traffic exists for both the broad match and phrase match. Now this phrase Dan and I sort of created a quick hub page as an example exercise during the boot camp, and we found this key phrase, how to build a deck. The first thing that we should say about this key phrase is that it's highly cyclical naturally, and the high traffic periods are during the summertime, when naturally people are interested in building a deck, and during the winter time the phrase really drops off. Almost certainly this period here is the time when Google either the traffic fell to a very low level or Google wasn't updating its database in relation to that key phrase. You can see that at the current time, off season, we would expect traffic of around about 500 page views a day, because it's nearly the same as our baseline male yeast infection keyword. And in the peak season during the summertime, we would expect probably nearly twice as much traffic. Now, in this case, if we look at the phrase match traffic estimation from Google by putting inverted commas around the key phrase, we still note that there is still traffic for that phrase match. It's not quite as much as the traffic potential that we would expect for the broad match, but there's still a lot of traffic that's tied to that specific phrase. What this is basically saying is that if people are going to enter those words, how to build a deck, into the search engine, then most of the time they're going to enter them in that order. They're actually going to enter the phrase how to build a deck. Whereas there will be other keywords where that wouldn't necessarily be the case. Now, the last thing that I want to point out, and I suspect from my reading of many of the comments on the Immediate Edge blog, is that there are circumstances when the traffic potential of a particular keyword is so low that it doesn't get displayed in the graph. And based on my use of Google Trends, it seems to me that when the traffic falls below about 250 searches a day, if the traffic potential is below that, then you won't see a line in relation to that keyword in the graph. And that's where these bar graphs come into play. I'm going to show you an example of this using a keyword phrase for which I happen to hold the number 2 and the number 4 position, the number 2 phrase match and number 4 position broad match. Intimo Lingerie is an Australian lingerie company. My partner happens to work for them. This key phrase has absolutely zero commercial value. I've never had a sale, I'll never expect to have a sale, because Intimo Lingerie is sold via party plan and there is no online purchase function for Intimo Lingerie, so that's why I'm quite happy to share this keyword with you. And I'm really wanting to use it as an example of something. Okay, so there's very little traffic associated with this phrase. I happen to know this because of the rankings that I have, and it's way under 100 searches a day. So it doesn't show in the upper graph here. However, we do get some information in the lower graph here. Firstly, we see that the traffic, there's virtually no traffic in Canada or the United States, a tiny little bit in the United Kingdom, and all the traffic is in Australia. Now, that's perfectly consistent with the fact that Intimo Lingerie is an Australian company. So Google Trends is merely confirming something I already know, but it's quite interesting to see that that is indeed the case. Now, the way I use Google Trends in the instance where the traffic volumes are too low to display in the upper graph is I look at the comparison of these two bars here. Most of the time, traffic in Google is English. So we can probably make the assumption that for male yeast infection and for Intimo Lingerie, almost all the traffic is going to be in English. So in effect, we can assume then that this blue bar here represents the traffic volume that we know we're getting, which is about 5 to 550 searches a day. Note that the little red bar, which is the traffic associated with the key phrase Intimo Lingerie, if we look at that as a proportion of this upper bar, then it would assume that we're getting 40 or so searches a day if you were in position 1 and 2 for the key phrase Intimo Lingerie. Now, I happen to be in position 4, broad match, and I'm getting about 20 to 25 searches a day, entirely consistent with what Google Trends is telling me. So if you happen to be in a situation where you enter a key phrase into Google Trends and nothing appears here, make sure that you check these bars here and see whether your key phrase has any comparative traffic in relation to this blue bar, which we assume to be about 550 searches a day, and then just do a comparison on that, and that will give you an estimate of the traffic volume that keyword has. Well, I think that's basically it from me. For those of you that that haven't used Google Trends yet, the address to go and find that service is at http://trends.google.com. I really hope that this video has hopefully clarified some uncertainties that you might have about Google Trends. It's merely a tool to be used to confirm or deny the potential traffic for a key phrase as defined by WordTracker. You finally now got a tool which allows you to actually confirm those numbers if they seem abnormally high or they seem high. Remember though that it's only telling you what the traffic potential is from Google. Now, in the maximum edge strategy, when you first start out, you're probably going to be getting most of your traffic from Google. So, this is perfectly consistent with what you might expect to receive in the first, 2 to 4 weeks of having a new Squidoo lens. But over time, as you embed your website into the internet and you do article submissions and you do directory submissions and you might get some ranking in Yahoo and MSN, then obviously over time you're going to be getting traffic from many more sources other than just Google. So this tool is really just to show you the traffic volume you might expect to receive from Google initially, but over time, you might expect to get a broader traffic volume from other sources. So it's really just a way of filtering out keywords in terms of their traffic potential as defined by WordTracker, and then ultimately to give you an idea what your initial traffic volumes might be if you happen to rank in the top 1 or 2 places for your keyword inside the Google search engine. Alright, well that's it from me. Hope this has been useful, and I look forward to seeing you all on the immediate edge. Bye for now.